It seems like we can't catch a break, and it's a different meaning every single time, because what I mean can't catch a break is that we can't catch a break from the breaks because it was Golden Week. Now it's an Oda break. I mean, it's still Golden Week, to be honest, because this chapter shouldn't be out yet. Either way, One Piece is back for the time being. We're on break next week, but let's not think about that for a second. I want you to just vibe with me, all right? Let's just vibe with me. Let's stay within the parameters of this chapter for a little bit. Chapter 1114. Every time it sounds crazy. Somebody did point out, shout out my boy Eric Talado, I believe on Twitter, he pointed out that 5 years ago, in 2019, Oda said he wanted to end the story in 5 years. Gotta let y'all know we have a few months left before the story is done, so just keep that in mind, all right? We got to get through a lot in a few months. No, that's not happening. Especially with these breaks and everything. No, not happening. Yeah, we're back, right? I know you guys have missed me. I won't go away that long again. I promise. I won't go away that long again. This is an important one, though. I sound like a broken record because it happens every single time where something major happens in the story. And I'm like, yo, this one, though. This is just the type of story One Piece is. Title is Fire, The Wings of Icarus. And a lot of people know about the story, The Wings of Icarus, where Icarus is the character who flew too close to the sun. For me, a very fitting title considering that that's how I viewed the Ancient Kingdom. I wasn't sure about them, exactly how they went about their business, how they did things. But to me, my speculative opinion was that the Ancient Kingdom, they are painted as this good faction. Oda leaves a little nuance with them, but for the most part, they're painted as the good guys and that they were overrun by what is now the world government, and those are the bad guys. That's not how One Piece is. Typically, One Piece is so nuanced that you sometimes struggle to pick a side because you understand both. Yes, because people like Kaido, Crocodile, Doflamingo, it's hard to empathize with them because you're like, okay, at some point, go to therapy. But typically, there's nuance in these characters and some of their actions. Like, that's why we like Senior Pink, right? Because it's like, okay, I get it. Big Mom is like, okay, I get it. You're mentally ill. A lot of these characters, they have issues with them. So the Wings of Icarus is how I viewed the Ancient Kingdom beforehand. So this being the title of the chapter, I was like, maybe I'm onto something. I wasn't on anything. That wasn't who they were talking about. They're talking about Vegapunk. But cover story. Yamato, she is now on a pilgrimage. Yamato is being asked by Kinemon to return a blade to Hakumai, basically for Yasui. And it's crazy because I haven't thought of Yasui ever since he died. That's not true. Every time they bring up Toko and they show Yasui, I think about him. But, you know, one of the better characters in Wano, so I don't want to disrespect his name. My hope is that it leads somewhere. Right now, it's not as intriguing. It's Yamato on a pilgrimage. I'm not as interested in that until it gets to the things that I care about, because I ultimately think that it leads somewhere in regards to Big Mom and Kaido, or it leads to something with Blackbeard, or even the ancient weapons. But for right now, it is what it is. Something I also want to say to my guys, shout out to my people that watch reviews or watch the content. Something I didn't realize that there are people that experience the story through my narration. They sometimes read, but more often than not, they're watching every week so that I can narrate for them what's happening. I didn't realize how many people actually did that. And so thank you guys for trusting me with doing something like that, because, you know, everybody has their inherent biases. You know, sometimes I can't escape that. I'm going to try to, going forward, keep that in the back of my mind so that I can deliver the most objective review while, of course, giving my opinions here and there for you to, but you know, their opinions. But thank you so much. Random, but I felt the need to throw that in. Now, story time. We started in a new world, right? We're at Marine HQ. The Marines are freaking out. And of course, there's a random image of Hina in the middle, just not really bothered. There have been several images like this of Hina where like the Marines are shown and she's not really singled out because she's an important character, but she's somewhat relegated to the background and she's just there, right? But she's just there. The Marines are freaking out because Vegapunk is telling the world that, hey, the One Piece world is going to sink into the ocean. Of course, some people are like, this is propaganda. I mean, the best part of this entire spread here is Akainu, right? Cigar in mouth, looking like his boy, Dragon. Doesn't really say anything. It's just ellipses, because what can he say? At this point, you have to kind of listen because you understand how credible Vegapunk is. And you really don't want to make people worry. You're the Fleet Admiral. You can't show worry. But, you know, you got the dark lines over his eyes. Oda is trying to make it seem like he's keeping cool, but my boy is worried, okay? My boy, that magma, he's feeling it moving through his body. He can't release it, and I'm sure he's felt that way for a long time. The Marines, they're like, what is Vegapunk talking about? Does he understand what he's talking about? So that was interesting to see. I would like if the goat said something. You know, I would like if Clifford, the magma goat, said something, but he's just like, let's see what they have to say. Mocktown. We all remember that's where Luffy packed up our boy, not our boy, Bellamy. I mean, I guess he kind of is our boy now because things are so significant now because Mocktown, when you think about it, and how Luffy and Zoro, once they were in Mocktown, when they refused to fight Bellamy, they were mocked. And so it's almost like a lot of these towns, they are to how people act there, where it goes again with devil fruits and devil fruit users. This is a bit deep, somewhat of a tangent. When they act the way they act, is it because of the devil fruit, or is the devil fruit attracted to them because of their nature, right? So it's one of those things where it's like degrees of separation with the story and the art, where you don't want to look at it too deep, because then you start to think, did you name it that because of this? Do people act that way because of the name? It's a very interesting thing. Tangent, but just something I thought about. Mocktown. The people of Mocktown, they're acting like we expect them to act. They are mocking Vegapunk, right? They're saying, are you a genius? They're laughing at him, saying, okay, you think the world is going to sink into the water? Okay. And so the people of Mocktown, that's what they do. They mock Luffy and Zoro. Even after Luffy pulled back up by himself, they were mocking him like, yo, you're about to get folded. So that's just what they do there. It reminds me of Noah's Ark, of course, which is loosely what a lot of this stuff is based around. In different religions, it's called different things. With this, using the Bible, Noah's Ark, Noah went around and said, hey, the world is going to flood. And people mocked him and laughed at him and said, hey, the world is going to flood. Okay, buddy. Okay, guy. And so this is carrying on that, where even as credible as Vegapunk is, they don't really care. They're laughing and pointing and mocking him. So Mocktown, I expect them to be one of the islands that we go to once the world starts to sink, because they're going to be running and say, yo, let me in, which is Noah's Ark. Now, Water 7. Again, a lot of the islands we went to this chapter, very integral islands, I think, where major things could happen once the world starts to flood. Water 7, they said, you know what? If you said Water 7 would flood, I'd believe you. But the tide's rising. It would take more than that to sink the world, right? Right? And Paulie, he's like, just remember, Water 7. There's a lot of things in Water 7 that implies that eventually it's going to sink. That's why Iceberg, my guy, is trying to build a boat of it all. And so if you live in Water 7, it's a bit scarier. It's almost like when you live in Florida and they say, yo, it's a hurricane coming, right? A hurricane that can envelop the entire world. People in Florida are likely to believe it a bit more just because we've been through hurricanes. Not we, because I've been through hurricanes before, but not in Florida, just saying. But if you live in Florida, they talk about a hurricane, they're gonna be like, okay, I can believe it because I've seen it. For Water 7, they're like, okay, I'm not saying it's going to happen to the world, but I can definitely see it happening to us. We should move. Impel Down, our boy Doflamingo. We go there, and of course, Doflamingo is laughing at the news because it seems like he knows something. He's having a casual conversation with Magellan, right? He's saying, yo, like, this is getting better and better, Magellan. Don't you guys have an obligation to take care of the inmates? What are you going to do if the prison gets completely flooded? At first, I thought he was talking to Magellan in a way that, okay, Magellan is the warden. He isn't the vice warden, but he's talking to Magellan where he's not there, but he's just saying, Magellan, what are you going to do? Like how sometimes he talks to the celestial dragons and saying he's going to drag them off their perches, but they're not there, obviously. I thought that's what he was doing, just talking to himself. We go down a little bit. Magellan is actually right there. He's just sitting, I guess, because he's not a warden anymore. He doesn't have as many responsibilities. And Magellan agreed with him. He's like, yo, you know what? You're right. Yeah, Dofi. One of the few times I do agree with you. And Dofi's like, or rather, Dofi explains that most urban areas would be screwed if water levels rose just 5 meters, right? 5. Maybe we should all evacuate. Maybe we should go somewhere higher up. And it's like somewhere high up. I know how sometimes words and the distinction you use, it can change the meaning of it. He says high up. I don't know what it's translated from, but these translations we typically respect. He says, maybe we should go high up. This is not the first time Doflamingo has insinuated higher up or high up. He knows about Imu. I believe that he definitely knows about Imu, but he knows about the situation in a way that's like insinuating more. Of course, I think he could be talking about more than Imu. He could be talking about space, because I'll talk about why this is tied in to all this right now. But Doflamingo definitely enhances the story. I understand why Oda keeps him in. He's like the Joker, right? Where he is thriving off chaos, and a part of the audience, the speculation of what if Doflamingo escapes with all that he knows? What would the world look like then? And you're continuously hoping for that chaos, because we feel like the One Piece world just perpetually will be enveloped in it. Kind of is right now. So Doflamingo is kind of this almost a third party relishing in the world's demise when he actively contributed to it. And if he had the chance again, he would make it even worse. And a part of you welcome it because you're like, I think Dofi's cool and I think he makes the story even better. So let him go, please. And so I enjoy the dialogue every time you go to Doflamingo. It enhances everything because you know that he knows more than he's letting on, but he kind of is letting you know that he knows more. So you're kind of always like, shit, what do you know? And so I want to know. But because we're getting more and more information, everything Doflamingo says, it feels so much more prophetic because it's like, Dofi, why? They should kill you, right? And he's just still there. And Magellan, he is such a stand-up individual because we heard of an assassin trying to go after Doflamingo. So that could be implied why Magellan is right by his cell because an assassin is trying to do their thing to him. But he has an obligation to his inmates. Just great stuff, right? Just great lore and connections that I'm not gonna lie, this moves me. Fishman Island, we go there as well, Ryugu Kingdom. And Shirahoshi's asking King Neptune, is that really going to happen? And Neptune is like, I don't know. It sounds so outlandish, Jamon. And it's interesting to hear Neptune say that, considering all that he's been through so far in his life and the things that he's seen, the route or just the lengths that people are willing to go, even to steal Shirahoshi, to wed Shirahoshi, the power that Shirahoshi has. Can you really say all those things are outlandish? Now, this is my evil brain speaking, where it's like, I'm sure people like this still exist in Fishman Island. I don't want to necessarily say evil fishermen, but fishermen that are still hurting from the trauma that were caused to them for several years. Using this as an opportunity, saying, if the world does flood, this is our opportunity to strike. A small rebellion building, saying, hey, this is our time. This is our time to establish ourselves as the true kings of this world if this world does flood. We don't see that, but I would be surprised if there weren't people thinking like that, considering everything that the fishermen had been through. Now, we go to Egghead. Back to Egghead, I should say. The Marines, they're calling Vegapunk a madman. They're like, come on, bro, what are you talking about? There's no way this is happening. As the Marines are saying that, you see the looks on the faces of the Gorosei, and they are freaking out, especially Venus. He is like, no, yo, we got to get rid of this broadcast snail immediately. Snuff out everything, right? Every living thing. We can deal with the ramifications later. This is already out of control. So they are panicking, right? They are like, no. And you can imagine, because I'm sure Emu's starting to hear things, right? Like your mom, you can hear your mom opening the door. They hear that and they're freaking out. So they're trying to shut everything down. It seems York is running. I think York could know some things. People are speculating that York could be the source of the transmission. So York would have to destroy herself to stop the transmission, which is, it goes against her nature because York is greedy. So York would never destroy herself to stop the transmission, because how does that benefit her? It just benefits everybody else. It doesn't benefit her in any way, because then she'd be killed. So that's what people are speculating. I don't know. York is running towards something, but she's like, yo, did this really start revealing everything? That's crazy. But Vegapunk goes into his whole soliloquy, right? He's starting because the videos should be up everywhere. And Vegapunk is saying, okay, I'm about to make a prediction. Assuming my sensor data is accurate, an earthquake will rock the entire planet, which did happen due to Lelouchia. So he saw all this coming. He foresaw all this. And the thing is, what's genius about this, and, you know, using genius with Vegapunk, it's not something that's far-fetched because he is a literal genius. The genius part about it is, first off, why the hell is Smoothie in this chapter? We haven't seen Smoothie in so long, since she was at the bottom of that waterfall. Just stay there. She's randomly like, don't tell me he's talking about today's earthquake. Didn't he die after this record? We don't want to hear from you. It's for a reason. I know it. It's just me and my personal feelings, because Smoothie, what are you? Like, are you a real character? Are you NPC? Are you just like a fill-in as a commander? I don't know. Smoothie and Mondor, just randomly. I'm like, did you save your mom? Like, what the? It threw me off. Either way, back to Vegapunk. He does something genius by saying he should be dead, right? But he's saying, if this earthquake happens, don't listen to me. If it does, you can continue listening. He's not only depending on his credibility, but he's like, let me tell you about the world, which even if you don't believe him, you're forced to listen, because you're like, yo, earthquake just happened and he's supposed to be dead? Okay, whoa, this is freaky. Now you're starting to wonder, wait, could he be telling the truth? He goes on to say, following the earthquake, the sea levels in the world over will rise by 1 meter, and a number of islands will become uninhabitable. And we're seeing islands at this moment where people can't live there because the water has risen by 1 meter. Dofi said if it rises to 5 meters, most urban areas will be uninhabitable. It rose by 1. So now people, of course, if you're in an island that's already uninhabitable, you're freaking out. You're like, this guy is crazy. He's saying what's going to happen. So I got to listen. So again, we're seeing all these islands where people they're already out of their homes in boats. Random Aokiji show, right? Aokiji's still recovering from his physical and mental damage. But this lets everybody lock in again. They're now locked back in. Okay, I thought he could be lying, but he just predicted what could happen. let me listen. He goes on to explain that he's always wanted peace and he's yearned for that, specifically peace and prosperity. And that brought about what he felt like was his first grave sin, which in that same panel, we see the mother flame, which in itself is hard to comprehend. But then based on what we know, I can somewhat make it make sense. He says he was fixated on a dream of developing a power source, hell-bent on driving the world to a brighter and better future, literally and figuratively. But like Icarus, he flew too close to the sun. Then we see the mother flame. Now the mother flame, this was jarring considering it is a literal flame. It is a literal flame that looks like it's enveloped within water or maybe a liquid. So this everlasting flame, you then think about, well, one, the Lunarians and the flame for them that doesn't really go out until they put it out. So then you think about the Lunarians, and we know that the world government, they were conducting experiments on the Lunarians. That's how King joined Kaido. So did they kill these Lunarians? And they were using that flame from their bodies to try to experiment on this mother flame, and Vegapunk kind of continued that research and came up with this mother flame? We don't know. But that's what I think about. Also in chapter 472, the cover story with Enel, you see something resembling this based on Enel and what he's looking at. It looks like a flame, a created flame, right? Which then makes you think about what Doflamingo said about high up. Okay, this isn't just about Emu. Are we going to space? Even the progenitor of this, the Lunarians, did they come from space? Are they space aliens? Somebody brought up an interesting theory, somebody on Twitter, I think. They said that the Lunarians, they could be from space because basically their flame on mode is to break the atmosphere and to land into Earth. That's why the mode is there. They more than likely are from space or from another moon, which I was like, that's fairly intriguing. I like that. But this mother flame thing, it's hard not to think about them and their everlasting flame. Again, while everything is going on, the Gorosei are losing their absolute minds trying to destroy everything because they're trying to stop it. They say we must eradicate all life forms. We must be relentless. It's an insane thing to say when you're talking about life, but that's where they are mentally considering what's going on. The funny thing that gets lost as well is that the Iron Giant is moving. We see the Iron Giant moving. They're already attacking it. They're not phasing it, by the way. And it does make a through line between the Iron Giant and the Gorosei, because Luffy and them, they're still fighting the Gorosei, Warcury specifically, and they're not phasing it, right? Seemingly they're not phasing it. Even the Giants are like, Luffy, like, we've tried everything damn near, let's go. Is Oda saying that we're going to need the Iron Giant to figure out how to damage them? Is this ancient tech that they're going to have to use to damage the Gorosei because they are ancient beings? So that's what I'm starting to speculate now. All this chaos is ensuing and Vegapunk is talking about the world ending damn near. But he goes on to say, in order to understand where the world is heading, we have to understand where the world was or where we came from, which is specifically what happened between 900 and 800 years ago. A lot of people call it the blank history or the void century, the void history. And that's when we see Emu's ellipses, right? Because it's like, what do you say? He's about to reveal the entire thing the world government was trying to hide. And something that I never really thought about, which makes sense, is that the actual celestial dragons, most of the celestial dragons, people not in the know, they know nothing about this. They're like, wait, what? Of course they wouldn't. They fed them, they clothed them, they gave them power. And so they're just up on their perch, living life, never really caring about what came to be or how you came into power. Because, I mean, think about it, right? For a lot of people, if you're in power, you've been in power for so long, right? You're not really thinking about how it came to be. You just don't want it to end. With the Gorosei controlling everything, Emu ruling at the top, they're just content with life. They can do whatever they want. They eat whatever they want. They're not really concerned with how it came to be, because too many questions might lead to some uncomfortable answers. And life is good. So they're like, wait, what are we talking about? He starts going into things we already know, the poneglyphs, and decoding them. And in the midst of that, you see Saul. If you did not believe Saul was alive, I hope this dispelled any notion that the giant that we saw in Elbaf was not Saul. It is 1000% Saul. We got the laugh. He is just waiting for things to crumble, right? And he loves what's happening. And so it's almost like the people that are in the know, they're waiting for this information to come out and they're relishing it. They're like, about damn time. Even back to Orange Town, we see our boy Chocho, and even in books, you have kids talking about how the world came to be, saying, hey, 20 kings teamed up, you know that? Which I start to think about, what's the intent here? Because we saw the Gorosei, or rather, the Celestial Dragons have no idea what they're talking about. And then we see a little girl that's reading, and she's like, do you know that back then the 20 kings teamed up to create the world? I'm like, is this just showing just how ignorant the Gorosei or the Celestial Dragons are, where they're in power and they have no idea how this came to be? And you have this girl who how she is more aware of the world and how it came to be than them just shows us how much wool was pulled over their eyes, literally and figuratively, right? So it's almost like, dang, like this is crazy. Like all this is happening at once. But Vegapunk, he considers this his second grave sin, decoding the poneglyphs, which technically, when you compare the two things, the mother flame and what he created and decoding the poneglyphs, I don't know if it's considered a sin because he himself said that he feels like information is for everyone. I guess that's a different thing, what you subjectively feel and objectively what it means to the world. And in this world, that is taboo. So to him, it's a grave sin. I get that. He shouts out O'Hara and saying he would not have gotten as far without their research. We see Robin and she's, of course, emotional. And then we get to the point where the Straw Hats, they're about to jump back into the Blue Sea, which now I'm like, okay, are we going to go into flashback mode or is Oda going to skip some stuff and we really just get out of Egghead right now? Because there's a pathway for us to leave now. Like we can literally leave. We're at the edge of the cloud where we can just jump back into the Blue Sea. I don't know why I keep saying Blue Seas because I recently went back and looked at some Skypiea stuff. So, I keep saying Blue Sea. Either way, they're right there to jump back in. But here's the jaw dropper, which a lot of us speculated already. Vegapunk said he only knows a small fragment and he can't leave us with baseless speculation. So he'll give us the facts as he knows them, which I think is Oda talking to the audience saying, I know I've somewhat teased you guys for this long saying I was going to reveal something. So I'm not going to just not leave you with anything. I'm going to reveal some things, but not everything. So don't get too hype. That's what Oda's telling us. But I have to tell you something. Build this up so long, I can't leave you with nothing. I can't do the thing I typically do. He gives us something. I hope he gives us more. Praying he gives us more. He says, the star of this story was born 900 years ago in the Advanced Kingdom. So JOYBOY is from that Advanced Kingdom. And something that Vegapunk confirmed as well is that saying, hey, just like the legendary sun god Nika from the fables of Elbaf, he too fought with a stretchy and elastic body. So just like that, there's so many different things to unpack because one, JOYBOY was born 900 years ago. Secondly, he is not sun god Nika, meaning sun god Nika predates him, which makes a lot of sense considering devil fruits and deities and slavery. All these things predates 900 years ago, right? Sun god Nika is before then. JOYBOY came after and he somewhat inherited sun god Nika, so more than likely he had the Gomu Gomu no Mi. So this is who JOYBOY was. Another thing we found out about him was that they called him JOYBOY and that he was the first one to be called a pirate. Kaizoku. That's all we get. Then we get it's a break next week. Let's break this down as simple as I can. JOYBOY was him. But when we think of JOYBOY, more than likely they called him JOYBOY because he was somebody that brought laughter. So they called him JOYBOY. But I'm going to assume JOYBOY was like a lot of the D's we've seen in the story. Even people that have D traits. I think of someone like Oden. He could have been okay with just doing everything Sukiyaki told him to do and just be content with that. But he's like, no, I want to travel. I want to see the world. And going against the grain, going against the currents of life, these people, they are trailblazers. Luffy, Roger, JOYBOY, right? The progenitor. Because I am going to assume that this Advanced Kingdom, because somehow this chapter, it is telling me as well that information and withholding information is how you kind of control the people. And I'm going to assume the Advanced Kingdom did the same thing. And for JOYBOY, he was like, let me go see. It wasn't just he was the first person to sail. He was the first person to sail unauthorized. Let me go see the world. Then you have to think about JOYBOY's story. He apologized to Poseidon from back then. They have people apologizing to him. So I'm assuming on JOYBOY's voyage, he met a lot of these people. Even Toki comes into play here because that's her era where she's from. So now I think about JOYBOY, I'm getting a clearer picture where he is someone who went to sail and he found out the truth before it happened. Could be like Ace and Yamato. I will come back for you, Yamato. He apologized to Poseidon. I couldn't fulfill my promise because I had to get back to the ancient kingdom because I saw that they were about to be destroyed and the future was more important than carrying on whatever my destiny was. Similar to Toki when she ran away from something and she ended up with Oden. She said, you know what? Somehow I feel like I ended up right where I needed to be. And because of her, they were able to skip forward 20 years. And that's how Wano and Kaido got slain because of that decision. JOYBOY could have been the same way. He went out to sail. He saw so many different things. And now I see why Roger laughed because this guy is the true trailblazer. I thought I was making waves, changing the world. This guy, unauthorized, no map, essentially. Probably created his own, sailing, unauthorized, the first pirate. This guy, I would have loved to be in that era. Yeah, it's making more sense. Like the pieces are coming together, but unfortunately we're on break next week. There are more conclusions we can draw, but I'm going to wait to do that. I want to go back and look at some more things because I feel like we got to reassess Skypiea, reassess the Fairyverse cover story with NL, even go back to Fishman Island with Roger and with Luffy, that entire scenario, because it's deeper than we thought. and we thought it was deep, and it's deeper than that. Could be underwater. That was a lot. So give me your thoughts, guys. How do you feel about this chapter? I think this is clearly based on how much I'm talking. Yeah, it's one of those. More to come. Podcast coming this week. I'll see you sooner rather than later, but we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.